So welcome to TechKartel once again. Today we have I'll be showing you the update BIOS utility from Gigabyte. How to update the motherboard BIOS. It's pretty easy nowadays. Earlier it was a bit tedious with floppy drives and all things in place. Now it's pretty easy, just a small utility. So there's a very basic procedure. Just go to the motherboard's vendor website, go to their supports and downloads, and now I know the model name of my motherboard. You can either go to the motherboard or you can come here, whichever way you find easier. Let's search that. Mine is motherboard. It did not. It's mine is AM3 plus, and it's 990FX. Let's say UD3. Search. Okay, we have everything about my motherboard here. Now make sure that if you have a Gigabyte board, then Gigabyte releases versions for their motherboards that they name it as revisions. It is on the left bottom corner if you are watching the motherboard in front of your eyes. So you need to update, you need to check that version. Reason being, there are some changes, or there are very minute changes, like they involve some new driver, or they remove some chip from the motherboard in the new version for the betterment, all these stuff. So make sure you have the right version selected. So mine is 1.1, because the difference between my version and this 3.0, this version has a UEFI BIOS and my has the old Award Phoenix BIOS. So let's go to my motherboard. So what do I need? Driver, utility. We'll open the utility first. Utility is not motherboard specific, so it's all universal. Of course they have written wherever needed. So we'll go to the @BIOS utility. Where is it? Okay, oh, it's touch BIOS. Okay, we'll find it out at the BIOS. This is the one. Okay, just download this utility, install it as a normal install, and it will be in its place. Now we'll go to the BIOS. I'll download the BIOS for my motherboard. I have selected the revision as well. The F9 is the latest BIOS. Do not update your motherboard to the beta BIOS. That sometimes may not work, and you'll have to reflash the chip again, or it may also harm your chip in such a way that it could not be reset, and you'll have to take the board to the service center. So make sure that you follow these two steps precisely. So now I have installed the utility already, so let's check that. Okay, here is it. Here it is. I normally prefer right clicking and selecting run as administrator. So here I go. Now I got this pop-up because I have a EasyTune, which is an overclocking unit utility by Gigabyte themselves, is running. So BIOS, whenever anything related to BIOS executes, it checks whether some tweaking or something is not happening to the hardware. So that's the reason this message populated. So I'll just click OK right now. Okay, so this is the interface of the BIOS utility. It's pretty simple, nothing technical needed. We downloaded the BIOS setup file. We downloaded the BIOS file. Now there are multiple options here. The first one, if you see here, it is update BIOS from Gigabyte server. Never do that, never ever do that, because if your internet connection goes off, or if your electricity goes off, if by chance your machine shuts down, your motherboard won't boot up again. You'll have to reset the BIOS, provided you have a dual BIOS chip on your motherboard. So make sure that you never opt for this option. Then second is update BIOS from file. This is the one which we would be using. And then save current BIOS to the file. Now this is a backup BIOS to your file. If you want to take a backup of this BIOS, keep it onto a floppy drive or a USB floppy drive. It's your wish. If something happens, you can reflash the chip with the same BIOS. On the left side, the only column which concerns us is the GA990FX UD3, which shows the BIOS version. That's F9 for my motherboard, and the BIOS vendor, this one, Award Phoenix. Now when you click on the BIOS file, it gives you the normal browse. Now see, here is one more feature by this utility. I have a 990FXA BIOS, but it's a FC. And my motherboard supports the F9, F8, F7, whatever. This is not for my board, it is for the 3.0 revision. Mine is 1.1. So if I open this, it gives me an error. BIOS vendor is not correct, because that board has a UEFI BIOS, the new BIOS, which has the clicking interface. You can click like a Windows interface. So that's for that motherboard. So now I do not know whether this is due to the difference between the vendor, or this is or the utility actually catches the BIOS versions. I'm not aware. I mean versions in the sense whether it is able to recognize. What if there was a different motherboard of say 1.2 which has a normal BIOS. I downloaded the file for that motherboard and I updated. So I don't know whether it would be able to recognize that this is not meant for this motherboard, because it gives you a vendor prompt. So I believe that if you download a BIOS from some other board which has the same award Phoenix BIOS, it may flash your board. So make sure that you download the BIOS for your own revision. Okay, so I'll just click OK for now. And now instead, if there was a right BIOS, you would have clicked OK, and this bar you see here, it would have run multiple times, reading, writing, erasing, reading, writing, erasing, in such manner. Do not touch your machine, do not touch anything when the BIOS is getting updated, else your motherboard is dead once the machine shuts down or anything happens in between the process. Now this load CMOS default after BIOS update, that's I mostly uncheck that, because whatever BIOS settings you have done, for example, I disable all the SATA, all the IDE ports which are detected in the first option of the old BIOS, because I use AHCI, so that's not needed. So I disable all of them. And there are some ports like COM ports, Firewire, IEEE something, all the COM ports, I all disable them. I disable them all. So I do not want to each and every time set them up again. So I just uncheck that. And clear DMI pool data is nothing but it is an instruction related to OS. That's not much of a concern. Do not touch it in short. So that's it, and that's it from the utility, and you would be good to go about updating the BIOS. If you have any questions or concerns, just comment. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't, please let us know using the comments, that we would be able to help you out with some more better and precise manner. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Bye bye.